Jeffrey Epstein just a predator who manipulated the powerful, or was he working for a foreign nation? I want to bring in Tracy Walder, former CIA officer, FBI agent, NewsNation's national security contributor. Tracy, so good to see you. Is there anything here to him being a Russian agent?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jesse. So I think it's really the other way around. In reading a lot of these files, particularly the ones that do mention Putin, because obviously that's of interest to me, I strangely think my takeaway is that he was weirdly obsessed with Putin. He
Mm-hmm.
was very obsessed with getting this personal meeting with him, right? He never got that meeting. So much to the point that he went to the FBI to say, I work for him. I'm his wealth manager. I can give you information. And he never could. I think he relished in being a spy of his own domain, blackmailing individuals, but I'm not sure that he was working for Putin.
That's interesting because there was rumors from U.S. officials whether or not he had ties to Russian mafia. And, there was always speculation, was he outsourcing Russian girls to high-profile individuals? I mean, one of the things that came out was that he penned this letter to Bill Gates about him getting some sort of sexually transmitted disease from Russian girls. So do you think there was an attempt there? And I agree with you. I saw the messages where it seems like he tried to have a meeting with Putin and then rejected a meeting at one point. Do you think that he was, in a way, trying to, have these honey traps of high-profile people to give information over to the Russian government, whether they accepted it or not?
So, yes and no. I do think that he was unfortunately trafficking young women and girls to gain power and money over these individuals, right? I don't necessarily think that he was doing it to help America, to help our national security, or to help Russia and to help Russia's national security. I don't think he cared about that. I think he cared about money. And I think he thought if trafficking some of these young girls and women to these individuals would help him get that, then that's something that he would do.
What about another country, right? I talk about the idea of him being tied to Israel. We got all these documents. Was there anything in there to suggest that maybe he was scared for his life, not because of his wealth, not because of his crimes, because he had information in an intelligence capacity and was using it in a way?
So, in my opinion, no. A lot of
Okay.
times we see that kind of come up, especially with some of the anti Semitic tropes that go on with Israel and with Mossad. Everything's sort of connected to them. And I think people want to sort of make him a fall guy for this, particularly with him being Jewish as well. So, I think that's part of where that comes from. I don't see any indication. Obviously, it's more so with Russia. That's really where I see it than with Israel. So, in my opinion, not so much.
What is the role of the FBI now after all of this in terms of next steps?
Listen, I personally think the intelligence community, our intelligence apparatus here in the United States, so that's FBI,
Right.
CIA, NSA, everyone needs to do a damage assessment, really, and see
Yeah.
what kind of information did he get out there in doing this and trafficking these women. And so I think that's what they're doing right now.
That's a fair point. Tracy Walder, great seeing you. Thanks for staying up late with me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.